Hi, I'm Gary Sutton, another edition of Small Town Developer. And one of the things that you think about for a small town developer is you're trying to make things better for the community. Or what are the things that get in the way of making big things happen in a small town? I'm with John Inch Jr. today. And John, great to be with you. First day of spring, man. It's beautiful outside. And I love this time of year. How about you?
Yeah, I cannot wait for the warm weather. And I love getting out there at the Regents, Glen, getting some golf in. I know I saw you out there last week, so.
I was practicing a little bit last week. I need a lot of practice right now. But, I was kind of reminded about the idea of spring where you're springing forward into things. Man, there's some things that can kill a small town developer and make you fall back sometimes when people kind of get in the way and issues kind of get in the way that don't look like they're part of trying to make the community better. And I know you've run into some of those here recently. You've been working hard in the sports complex and something that's going to bring the whole community together, something that's going to make things better here in the community. Tell me about some of the things that have been happening to you. There's been some big headlines out there lately.
Yeah, well, we seem like we're always in the news for something, but we always swing big in life, and it's something that Jeff and I always like to do. We don't like to take life, small. We like to go big at it, and sometimes that comes with the consequences of being in the newspaper a lot or being a lot of press. But we believe in sports. We believe in how it changes youth. We believe in how it affects the community, how it brings the community together. And Jeff and I always talk about there's only two things that bring the community together in a large fashion is sports and music. So no matter who you are, if you're an Eagles fan, don't matter what you look like, if you're rooting for the Eagles, you're their brother.
Hey, you're talking about some universal languages right there. You're up my alley. I love talking about that. And, when you talk about bringing the community together and the whole idea of this sports complex, what could help our community more than a place that brings kids together, a place that brings all kinds of sports together, a place that brings people together, where conversations going on, where there's a lot of really neat things happening, and then all of the ancillary kind of things around there, they're going to benefit from that, from hotels to food places to you name it. It's all right there.
Yeah, job creation. There's a whole bunch of attributes to this site that make it, attractive for anybody who wants to come move to the area. This whole region, not just York, but all the surrounding. There's 16 school districts in York County, and all of them benefit from a neutrally located sports center. And same thing in Lancaster with Spooky Nook and what they have going on, and in York as well. It just brings the community together. And what we focus on more is bringing the community together and also the kids that can't afford to be part of that. And that's a lot. There's a big sector of the population that can't afford to drive to Spooky Nook or any sports complex, but they might be able to get public transportation or hitch a ride to get to this complex. So it is, I think it's very vital to the community.
There's apparently a sector of the community also that doesn't believe you're doing it for altruistic reasons. It doesn't believe that you're doing it for anything other than just the money. There are people that sit out and dwell on those kind of things as well, aren't there?
Yeah, we've been hitting a lot of little walls in opposition, and it's a common theme in small towns, and we're hitting it especially here in the York area. It's a very small portion of people. Now, we were talking last week, I think it's about 560,000 people in York County, and you'll have about 0.5% to 0.75%, not even 1%, that might oppose it, or not even oppose it verbally, but might just not be positive when they think about it. But you have the whole other 99.5% that are like, hey, texting me, texting my kids, asking me every week, when's this going to happen, when's this going to happen? But there's also some headwinds and some people that aren't very favorable to the community, and we face that. And one of the headwinds that we faced is the LERTA approval. And, we hit that kind of head on. What the community doesn't really know, and when you're going through these projects, which you kind of underpin, is the politics, the local politics that drive these. And as soon as we put this project out, the borough that we're building in, head over heels, loved it, loved the idea. We're great to work with. David Bolton, that is the borough manager, was great to work with, helped us coordinate the project. All the senators, local, Carol Hill Evans, big supporter. We had a lot of really, really good people supporting it. And it just seemed like the school district held it back. And we actually had immediately our first approval, which was back in March of 23. The borough said, hey, we're going to approve this. We're not going to participate in it. And I want to, kind of talk about what that means. So a lot of times these boroughs can't really get any other income. The boroughs are constricted because there's not a ton of development in there. They don't have much land, and most of them are built out. So anytime they can get a development of this size, they want it. I mean, it just expands their budget without adding a lot of kids to the school district. So the process of LRTA is that you go before the township or the borough or the city first. They can designate the site as a LRTA site. They don't have to approve it, though. They don't have to approve the income reduction on their side. But they can say, hey, this is a great project. And of a tax bill that might be $500,000, the portion to the borough might be $80,000. So the big bulk of that goes to the school district.
Yeah, for people out there that don't know what LRTA means, it's Local Economic Revitalization Assistance Act. And essentially what you're doing is you're helping, like where there's a deteriorated type of property, you're helping to build that back up and make it useful again and put tax dollars back into the coffers of the local school district and other places as well.
Yeah, and that's what the whole premise of this, one day when we were driving past this and we looked at this, probably 10 years ago, it was blighted, it was grown up, nobody was really using it. There was a couple odd, events that were there here and there, but it's just at a prime time area, right off, major roads, major routes. And we thought it would be a great opportunity to bring something like this to this area. But when we think something sounds good and when it makes sense and it makes logical sense, doesn't mean that it makes sense to everybody else in the community. And from a property that sat in zero income, when it was a school, there was zero income. So
right.
The community gets zero income when it comes to the school district, when it's in the school's hands. It's a nonprofit. There's zero income that comes back to the school
right.
district. There's no taxing agency. When it gets into a private developer's or a private owner's hands, then it gets taxed. So the current tax value now with no buildings and no structures on it is very low. It's only a couple $1,000s a year. As soon as you put buildings on it, all of a sudden the tax base we estimate goes to over $500,000 a year from a taxable income year over year over year. But the majority of it's going right to the school district.
Yeah. So you look at this whole thing and you say, okay, well, why would people be opposed to this? Do they disagree over what a deteriorated property is? Do they not want the money to come into the district there and help kids and help the school district and so forth? Is it about you as a small town developer, or is it about any small town developer? Are they doing this to everybody who comes into the area who says, hey, I want to take deteriorated property, I want to make it into something better than that? I mean, are they turning down everybody that comes along the way?
No, what's funny is, there's a project that's right up the road from here. And, if you look on the screen, it's about 214 acres, and I was actually on the board when this got approved. And it spans over a huge area. My family and I hunted there for years and years and years, and one of the local families owned it. But that project got several $1 million in LRTA tax abatement, up to the tune of $5 million. This is an out-of-town developer, no local ties.
Where are they located?
They're actually in St. Louis, Missouri.
Oh. So not small town developer right here in New York, where you have people whose faces that you see and people that and you know what they're doing, but someone elsewhere.
Yes.
Interesting.
So that's where, we kind of ran into an issue where we thought, they kept pushing us off. For over 18 months, we requested to get in front of the school board to be able to present our LRTA request, and we got denied, and we got pushed off, And from our standpoint, the property sat there for 19 years unused. Zero use. Tax base, almost nothing. We're going to provide a tax base of up to $500,000 that we're projecting. Majority of that comes to the school district. There's no kids created from this project, so we're not building a large residential community. And all we were doing is asking for a step up. So the first year we pay 10%, second year 20%, third year 30%, and you step the whole way up. So you go from no tax base to a tax base of $500,000 a year, and it doesn't hit anybody's pockets. So contrary to some of the things that were said and put out in the community, and if you look on the screen, we actually were in the newspaper again, in one of the articles that was Jeff and I's picture up there. And
beautiful picture, by the way.
Not for me.
Not in that situation either.
Yeah, no. And we had one of these Facebook groups put out a bunch of disinformation that we should kind of highlight one by one, because Jeff and I, for the last 10 years, we've been growing actively and we're trying to do great things in the community. And we've kind of got bullied around by some of these other, I would call them groups that don't care about the community. They just care about politics. And this is one of those situations where a lot of the information that got put out there is not accurate. And when you go down through them line by line and you kind of look at, what it says, real estate developers receive millions of dollars in tax exemptions. That bill falls back on seniors and working families. It's not fair. It's not right.
How does that work?
Well, let me ask something, Gary. If we don't build the project and we don't move forward,
Right.
how much tax base do they have?
Zero.
Yeah. We're creating the tax base.
Right.
So how is it affecting seniors and working families if we don't do anything?
I would think it's going to help people in that area to revitalize the area a little bit. And for people who are in that area who are seniors and other people there as well, I can only imagine it goes better as opposed to nothing being done, right?
Yeah, that's the point. The point is that this LERTA program was specifically set up for areas like this. For 19 years, there hasn't been anything here. So for someone to say, hey, well, the next best thing's going to come here, it hasn't. We brought together a great plan, a lot of the community members together, held a great event on a groundbreaking, and then went from the school board and we didn't even get to the school board, got to the finance committee and just got shot down. We basically didn't even get to talk.
So the alternative here, let me just think about this for a second, because I'm a simple guy. As I think about this, so you're saying, okay, here I have a group that wants to put something in there that's going to draw people in, it's going to help the area grow, it's going to put tax dollars in the pockets of the school district, it's going to bring dollars into the hands of the merchants. Or I can just revert back to the status quo, which is let it sit there for another 19 years and do nothing for the community and not be fruitful. Let me see if I have that right. That's quite a choice.
Yeah, it seems pretty simple, and that's the reason why we just felt like, hey, the community is going to embrace this, specifically the school board, because that's who we're presenting to. We thought it was a no-brainer. We thought everybody's going to say, hey, makes perfect sense. This is a community project. And what we hit was a wall. For 18 months. We couldn't even get in front of a board. They wouldn't even let us come and present. So when I talk about small town politics, small town developments, there's a lot goes on behind the scenes that we don't know, that we're not privy to, but there's forces fighting against us.
One of the interesting things in this post that you saw there was that they said they deny a special tax carve-out for a for-profit corporation. I thought that was interesting. Like somehow the fact that you're a for-profit corporation, you're actually trying to make money in this world, and yet at the same time, while you're doing that, you're trying to help your community. Like somehow it seems like there's a little intimation there that that's somehow wrong. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I think the precedent was set with the other developments. They're all for profit that got approved. And all of those developments were out of town developers that were developing warehouses, which, as you know from some of our other projects, are very controversial. But the school district gave them a LERTA. So it just doesn't seem right where if they're saying it's for profit or if it's not for profit entities, then why would you give it to a project right up the street like we showed here earlier?
When you talk about the warehouses, and I don't have any problem with the warehouses, although a lot of people would say, well, the amount of land that they take up and so forth, you could chat about that and have a conversation about that and even debate it. But by the same token, in a lot of those cases, is that money staying here in York County for trucks and so forth that are going through and on to somewhere else? You're coming up with an idea here that says that money's going to stay right here in York County. It's going to be invested for York County. It's going to be invested for a specific school district in Central. It seems to me like one is far more valuable to us in a sense than the other. Not that the other one doesn't have a role to play, but what you're doing is you're keeping it right here, again, with people who are going to benefit right here in a very direct and even indirect way in a lot of cases. Am I reading this wrong?
Well, in and of itself, local economic revitalization. Economic revitalization. So I was on the township board for 6 years. I was on the Parks and Recreation board for 13 years in this township. And in this township, there's a majority of the hotels are along that corridor right where this is proposed, this sports complex is proposed. Where do you think the most dangerous crossroads in York County is?
I'm not sure.
Tornado Street and Route 30.
There you go.
Right there at the crux. There's a huge hotel district. Manchester Township is spending currently hundreds of thousands of dollars, an additional spend in the budget, just to patrol those hotels because there's so much crime and robberies and theft and human trafficking, sex trafficking, all goes through the hotel district right there. What we were doing, the economic revitalization, that's exactly what we're proposing. What do you think is going to happen when you've got $30, $40 million of money spent in this area, specifically right there? Hotels start getting booked by families, not by drug dealers, not by sex traffickers. And you start getting the community to grow and see some of those rewards where you don't worry about if you have friends coming to visit, they can stay in a nice hotel. Right now, that's a dangerous area down there. And that's what the LERTA was created for, a project like this that has sat vacant for 19 years in order to help you get it off the ground. And one thing that I think is undermined, I think it's almost forgotten, especially by the finance committee or the school board right now, is that you still have to sign a loan. Like there's a warrant body that has to sign a loan for this project. So have you ever signed on a $20 million loan?
Not yet, no.
Not yet.
I'd like to have the opportunity someday, but it hasn't happened yet, no.
Okay, well, when you sign on that, you're signing your house, your cars, your dog, your cats, anything you have. If the project don't go well, they're coming for you.
I think it's called risk.
It's 100% risk, and they're coming for you.
Have you ever signed one of those?
A lot, too many. But
the point is, you do have some practice doing that. You do have some practice looking at things in those kinds of amounts, and you do have some practice going through some of the roadblocks that have been put up in front of small town developers like you.
Yeah, and that's the reason that we were there in front of the committee and explaining to them. I don't think they really heard this, or it really doesn't hit them. Maybe that they're not in the business sector, the business world, but just to get over break even is over $200,000 a month in that facility, just to keep it running. Now you go and add a tax of $40,000 a month. That's what the school tax is, $40,000 a month. Over top of that, just to break even. So when you say, I'm going to sign on a $20 million loan, I'm going to bring this project to fruition and we're going to get it going, the amount of risk that we're taking just for the betterment of the community is gigantic. And I think that's not understood. For some reason, a lot of people think it's free money out there or money grows on trees, but it's huge risk. And when we're doing that and we're asking for a LERTA designation, we're asking for the school to be part of this. Also knowing that all my kids play sports in Central School District.
Right.
There's no gym space. There's no gym space. All my kids share half a gym with another team locally, MTAA, all these different leagues. We have no gym space. We have no court space. We have no space. You can ask anybody around York County. You can ask anybody in this whole area, in this whole region. There's just no gym space. This actually helps the school district because it cuts down on the cost that they have cleaning their gyms, cleaning the elementary schools, opening them up, closing them to be able to let these leagues play in. This would have been the home for the leagues. So this is kind of why we brought this to the school. And we thought, like I said, it would be very, very factual, easy to get through. And we didn't really think that we would face this much resentment or pushback with a great project like this.
Well, it sounds like you were approaching it more as, we want you to be a partner in this. And in being a partner, you're going to reap the financial benefits in the long run. Yes, we've got a project that's going forward, but it's going to go forward for the benefit of a whole lot of people, including a lot of kids in your school district here. Yeah, they have gym space, but they also have a lot of teams that are vying for that gym space. Having been a coach there, I know a little something about having to go into some of these different places to practice, and they're doing a great job with that, but you max it out at some point in time. So now you provide an extra place there in the district, what's going to be a jewel for a lot of people here, not just the district, but in York County. And instead of having a partner there, you have someone who's looking at you and saying, oh, you're in profit, you're for profit. That's all it really matters. Instead of seeing the for profit, you're taking a lot of risk. You could sit back and go on any other project you wanted to go on and forget this, and yet at the same time, you got a dream you're trying to make happen right here. It doesn't sound like they wanted to be partners with you at all.
Yeah, and that's really the feedback that we're getting, and it makes us pause. It makes us think about what we're doing. When you have the majority, 99.5% of the community, that's what keeps us going forward. That's what keeps us moving. That's what motivates us. But when you get pushback like this from people that I don't think are fully invested in the community like we are, it makes you hesitate and think, do you want to push against the wind, or do you want the wind to ride with you in other areas?
One of the things I saw in this article that stood out to me was they said there's an overwhelming body of publicly available evidence to suggest this is not one of those kinds of projects for tax abatement. I mean, you look up there at the screen, and what overwhelming body of evidence, unless you point again to that project we were talking about earlier, that's an overwhelming body of evidence where you've given money to someone from the outside to come in who doesn't even live in the area here, and they're building on one of these distressed kind of properties or deteriorated kind of properties. I better make sure I say it correctly. That's some evidence, but I haven't heard that brought out in terms of supporting their argument there and saying, yeah, here's the same kind of thing to someone with a face we don't recognize compared to someone whose face we do recognize.
Yeah, and that was it was shocking to me because we actually asked that question. How many emails? How many calls did you get? Because when you get in a room full of people like that, and there wasn't really that much people in this last meeting, I'd say 40, 50 max, it only represents, 16th of 1% of the whole York County. And this is really a county project. It's not really a Manchester Township project. It's not really a Central York project, but Central York gets the benefit of it. The school district and Central gets the benefit of it because it's in that taxing authority. So we feel like, the underpinning or like the undertow that they were talking about, or they were referring to, we were asking for that. Show us the emails. Is there 5,000 emails that you got? I would love to say, I would bet it's not even 50 emails. If you had to go out there, I bet it's more in the 20 to 30 emails, but that's how they were building their case. And what we really feel like is we were taken advantage of because we have been successful. And because of that, they looked like we didn't need the assistance. But it doesn't make sense when a multi-billion-dollar company right up the road got millions of dollars in LRTA granted to their project, nothing to do with the community. They don't even live in the community.
And you look at this whole thing and you say to yourself, okay, geez, we had a dream. We're trying to push this forward. So is it personal or is it something more than that? In other words, when you fight back against this, if there's 20 people, 30 people, 50 people, whatever the number might be, is it about personal? Is it about the fact that you've been successful? Do you think, and I'm asking your opinion on this, or is it about the fact that they don't want anyone who's making money to somehow make money for the district in terms of bringing something there like a sports complex or anything else at that particular point? Obviously, they granted one of these LRTA things to this group out here in this Bear Road project, but they're not ready to grant it to you to do something that's going to benefit the whole community. I keep coming back to that because I'm just trying to figure out in my head and understand, why you would do one but wouldn't do the other. And the other one is going to be right here where your kids and your people are going to be using that facility on a regular basis.
You're being too logical. And I
have a habit of doing that sometimes.
You're being way too logical. Yeah. And that's the point that we were making. It doesn't feel like it would be something that we pushed it back against, especially in a school district. If this property was already operating, it was already generating cash flow for the school district, you could make an argument. It's been sitting there for 19 years. It's been doing nothing for 19 years. And, one thing that Jeff and I keep going back to is that there's other communities, there's other school districts close to here, like the neighboring school districts, that would jump head over heels, donate land to us, to be able to build the community there, build the sports complex over there instead of over here. And I think that's something that will be seen here in the next few months, what actually happens. Because one thing that Jeff and I aren't going to do, and we owe this to our families, we owe this to our companies, we owe this to everyone around us, is we're not going to make a risky decision on something and press against the wind on something that seems so basic and so easy to be able to grant to this project. And like I explained earlier, it costs another $40,000 a month. And the listeners that are listening to this, I just want them to think, could your business or could your pocket, Gary, afford another $40,000 a month hit?
No.
When you're going off the ground. And the point that I'm trying to make is these projects, and same with Spooky Nook, we had met with them years ago and we're just kind of first thinking about this and how this would all play out. It took them years and years and years to be profitable. They were dumping millions and millions and millions of dollars back into that place just to be able to keep it running, to be able to get profitable. A project like this, till you get tournament organizers to be able to come out and then hold their event there, they don't just switch. It takes years to get them to hold their events there. It gets years for them to even understand there isn't a venue there, even if you push this information out.
Right.
And it just doesn't happen overnight. So when you get that first year and that 40,000 every single month starts ticking off, you get in that second year. All we were asking for is a little help. We were going to pay 10%, 20%, 30%, just like they've granted other places. And it doesn't seem very crazy. We thought it was a pretty easy ask. We weren't asking for zero for 10 years. And there's other projects in this area that have got that kind of LRTA abatement. But we were trying to be reasonable and be good to the community.
On the other hand here, they did say in this piece that I was reading where it says construction has already begun. I go by there just about every day when I go to work, and I've seen destruction. I've seen things torn down and getting set for construction, but I haven't seen any construction start yet because you've been waiting on a lot of these kind of things. And then it said, one of the things that they kind of criticized you for, they said, well, your people said, well, it's going to continue whether we get this or not. And they're saying, we're not ready to give a taxpayer-funded handout like the one that was requested, that you're going to go ahead and do this anyway. So why don't you just go ahead and do it anyway? And I'm not sure I know what's in that attitude, what's in that statement. Your thoughts on that and reaction to that?
Yeah, it's more divisive because what the question was asked in one of the meetings, and I think one of our guys had actually responded and said, can this project go forward without LRTA? Well, any project done right could go forward without LRTA.
Sure.
It's just the risk that you're willing to take. And there doesn't need to be risk here because there's no tax base here. The risk can be assumed together. 10%, 10%, 10%, and the risk is assumed as the project moves forward. That's what good community partners offer when you're looking at these projects. And then our team spent 2 years traveling around the United States looking at projects like this. Most of these projects have $20 to $30 million grants from the state, the county, the region that bring these projects to the area. And that's what makes them viable. We've gotten we got $1.5 million in RACP money to the project. So we're trying to do this all private money, and this would have been the only kind of help that we would have gotten outside of $1.5 million LRTA grant, which is basically a drop in the bucket when you're looking at a $40 million project. And we were still continuing to move forward with it, but just to go and get a setback of another, not LRTA designation just doesn't feel right.
So, John, when you look at risk, you've talked about risk, and you're a businessman. You've taken a lot of risk over the years, and you come through with it, and you've got a lot of projects that are around that speak very, very well of your company. One of the reasons that your company is doing very, very well. As I listen to this, and as I look at the central point of view, is there a risk to them if they would approve the LRTA? In other words, what is the risk to them? You know what the risk is to you, but what is the risk to them as far as you can see it or as you try to look at the other side on this?
It's all upside. I mean, the school district's getting upside. The school district's getting $4,000 to $5,000 a year in taxes, all the way up to $500,000 a year. So from the risk standpoint, there's not much risk at all. Once the building's put in place and built, even if the project fails, the tax still builds at that higher amount and still continues. So once the building's put into motion, once the project's completed, whether the project's a success or not, the building's there, so you have the base that's there. One thing that we were doing is looking at what it looks like 20 years from now. And I don't know if it's just a misunderstanding of business or business principles, but if you were able to invest zero, so one of the talking points that they have here is the millions and millions of dollars in tax exemptions, and that falls back on seniors and working families. And I want to go back to that. That line makes 0 sense because there is nothing. If we do nothing, there is no income. So to say that there's a risk to the community, it's 100% upside. There is no risk to the community. The risk is on the developer. The risk on us, in order to make the project a success and make the program a success. And the big thing that Jeff and I, and the main reason that we started this, is to give young kids the opportunity to get involved in sports at a young age. That's the crux of it. They can paint us whatever they want to paint us. The school board, the small groups can paint us whatever they want to paint us. But the crux of it is we love kids and we love the community. That's the only reason we were pushing this so hard. And to get attacked as this is a handout to a developer,
right?
It just don't feel right because it's not a handout. We receive no money. It allows us to not have to put out money for taxes, but we receive no money. And what's decisive or divisive about these comments are, if you read that, it feels like we're receiving all these millions of dollars in assistance. It's not. It's a slow buildup over time so that we're able to get the project off the ground successful without taking a $40,000 a month hit.
For a lot of years in New York, you've seen companies come into town where they have the decreasing tax value each year, the 10-year plans and so forth that we've heard about. And this seems like one that's going the other direction, where you're going to be paying more money as you go through the whole thing, not less money, because a lot of companies we saw come into town did that, then left the village, right? You guys are sticking around. And that's something, if you look at that kind of philosophy a little bit, it does make some sense of what you're doing here, but asking for some help to give something back to the community. I was really interested here in something that they said as well. They said our district is already an attractive place for the project in question due to the location. Available real estate, local economic conditions, current tax policy. Central York is an excellent place to live, work, raise a family, and retire with dignity. No one's saying it's not. Okay, but it seems like what they're saying there is almost, we don't need this? Is that what, if I read between the lines, is that what they're saying? This is already fine, we don't need anything else? I wonder how many people would disagree with that statement and say, yeah, this sports complex, though, being put on a property that hasn't yielded any money for 19 years or 17 years, whatever it is, how many people would agree with that statement? Yeah, we love the place we live. It's a great place to live. But does that mean we don't make it any better?
Yeah, and the quick answer to that is it's been 19 years sitting there,
Right.
that it's done nothing. So if we want to continue the argument down the road of, well, this is a great opportunity, great location for anybody to come do something, then anybody would have built here. And one of the things that holds this property back from being able to be developed from a residential standpoint, when the school sold it to a private owner before we owned it, they put a deed restriction on this property. So you can only build 55 and over community here. So it's an age restricted community. So the property, there's been so many renditions of different ideas and different scopes. I don't think that you want to retire in a community where you have going to be a 6-lane highway running right beside your bedroom. And I don't think that's, what they're looking for. So this project is sat there for this many years, not doing anything. If it was something, or if it was a good location for that, it would already been built. And I think we've provided a great, project, a great underwriting that we took on ourselves to do before anybody, kind of knew about this. We took a deep dive, put a big team together, and to get to the end here and then just keep having it be shot down. Sometimes you got to look at yourself in the mirror and say, do you keep pushing against the wind, or you take the wind and go somewhere else?
I'm thinking about a movie, Field of Dreams. I don't know how many people ever saw that movie with Kevin Costner in, and he goes out and cuts down part of his cornfield to put up this baseball diamond where these ghosts come and play from the 1918 Chicago Black Sox. But the idea was that they built this field. He didn't know exactly why. It goes through the whole movie. But at the end, one of the things that stands out that may apply to this situation, even though it was a movie, is when the little girl, his daughter, says, "Dad, people will come." And I was thinking about that today as I was thinking about our talk. And a lot of people used to come there a lot to watch football, to watch baseball, to take part in activities, to have various kinds of activities there. And a lot of people used to come to that field when it was the old Central High School. So you say now, okay, I'm going to put something there. Nobody's been coming there for 19 years on a regular basis to do a whole lot. Yeah, there have been a few things there along the way, but not on a regular basis. Now you put something there that on a regular basis, I wonder if people will come. If you put something there now and they have a reason to come there as a destination, wouldn't you want to have that in your district if you had the chance?
Yeah, it seems that, as we've been talking to more and more districts and talking to other people in the other areas, and we've got a lot of publicity over this over the past,
Right.
2 to 3 years. So a lot of people have reached out, from the Carolinas, to out towards Ohio, right north of Pittsburgh. There's actually a big outlets that's looking at do one of these communities out there towards the Pittsburgh area. It's everybody gets around them in those other areas outside of the small town and supports the project. You have everyone, tax abatement to, county funding to the state funding, and you have, large local, businesses that take huge chunks, as in hotel providers and restaurants that know they're going to reap the benefits, gas stations,
Right.
Downtown restaurants, the Yorktown Hotel, everything, everybody that's going to benefit from this usually steps forward because of how big impact it is. But in a small town, there's just not those people, or there's not those resources, and it falls back on us. And that's the reason why the risk is so high for somebody like us to be able to take on, because we don't have that huge assistance. We don't have, the state didn't step up and say, hey, we'll do $20 million. We know this is how it's going to affect this
Right.
local economy. Spooky-Nook, is phenomenal. I'll be over there all weekend for my son's basketball tournament.
I've coached over there in tournaments over the years. Place is packed.
This weekend, they have 600 basketball teams
Yeah.
coming over there. And it's a great environment, great for the kids. And, I love it. And that could be York. Yeah, that could be here too. And we could both share in the reaps and the benefits. The kids share in the reap and benefits. The businesses do, the hotels do. Everybody wins in a project like this. And it feels like that win, because it's such a big win, I guess the school district don't feel like we need any help.
Well, you mentioned about a lot of the other places that have done this, and as I sat and listened to you talk about that, everybody got together and said, how do we get this done? What role could we play? How can we jump in there? How can we get some of the things out of the way? We have so many regulations in this country today that get in the way, and the idea is, let's take some of those away. Yes, let's have quality control, but at the same time, let's make sure that we have a chance for us to achieve our dreams. Here's a dream right here that has a chance to work, and I'm just wondering the percentages of people out there that really know that maybe a small percentage of people are holding up something that's going to really benefit a whole lot of people in the long run. That's a big question I have. I don't have the answer right now, but I'm just wondering what's holding that up. Is it politics? Is it jealousy? Is it somehow you think you're getting taken? I don't know what it is, but I would certainly hate to be uninformed about this. And this is a chance to inform people as to what the real reasons are that this project is trying to get done and why you're pushing it forward and why you're taking on a lot of the risk and just asking for a little help along the way.
Yeah, and we've went through different renditions time and time again on this project,
right,
and getting it to where the point it is today. It's from a community standpoint, it's very welcomed in. Like I said before, Jeff and I have received tons and tons and tons of emails and text messages and phone calls and everywhere we go that are championing us to go along. But the problem is, as well as this project and other projects, the people that have the least amount of invested interest in the community are carrying the largest voice and affecting the next generations to be able to enjoy a project like this. It's the people that have the smallest invested interest in the communities. And, the room was full of about 40 people in that last committee meeting. And I got in there late, and I was actually doing, we sponsored some kids that couldn't afford to play in one of the AAU programs in York. So I was there. We did a little film with some of the parents there, and then I was flying. I was actually watching the finance committee meeting on my phone. As I was driving. Actually, I was sitting at stoplights, and I was always heading back towards there and trying to get there before they stopped. And when they came in, I was asking if I could say anything. They said no. Public comment is done. And I sat there and looking at the people in the crowd that were there that were saying, which again unverified, all these people against it, all these emails. And I looked around. I didn't see anybody that I see in the business world doing great things for the community. I didn't see anybody in there that was hammering on us. Most of them didn't even live in the school district, which we can talk about that another day. But the people in there are not the people that I brush shoulders with every day that really want to bring change to the community.
Final thoughts on this in this edition of Small Town Developer. What do you think? I mean, what do you think about pushing forward now? Where do we go with all this? Because you're a guy with dreams. You're a guy with big dreams. Small town developer, yet with some big time headaches right now from maybe a small group of people. We don't know. So where do you go with this at the end of the day?
I think we have to sit back and think deeply if this is the right time, to move something forward in an environment where the school board is kind of anti-development and anti-project. And, Jeff and I have been pretty successful. We thank God and, that he's brought us through some bad times and good times. And, we've had a lot more good times than bad. And we don't take that for granted. There's some companies that don't get the fortunate good times that we've had. But we also don't want to put our companies at risk in taking a big swing at a project like this when we don't feel like we have 100% community buy-in. And even if we didn't, the good people in our community, and we're full of 99.5% of the people in York County are great, great, great people, hardworking, blue collar, show up every day. They want best for the community. They want to raise their families. They want to provide opportunities. They want to leave generational, wealth to their families. They want to do something, leave it a little better than they did before. They want all of this. That's 99.5%. But there's this 0.5% of population that comes to these meetings, that writes these emails, that stifles good development. And I'm going to say that over and over again because the vested interest, as in, do they invest dollars in the community to better the community? That's small business, local nonprofits, charities, are they doing anything? And I think when you sit back in a room and you look across and you scan back and forth, you're going to realize that there's not a room full of those people. The 99.5% aren't there. It's the 0.5%. And that's something that we really want to focus on is, do we want to kick off a project and push this forward with a school district that's not behind us?
And maybe that's what this podcast is all about. When you see it, maybe that 99.5% start to talk a little bit more, start to pressure a little bit more, start to let people know what their wishes are a little bit more. Where a small town developer is trying to make a big time dream possible, get rid of some of these small time ways of thinking, and at the same time, make a dream come true for kids and people here in York. It could earn a lot of money for people instead of going back to the status quo and earning nothing by just sitting there. John, great to be with you today. Thanks so much again. Another edition of Small Town Developer with something to think about today in terms of what you want for your small town area. I'm Gary Sutton. Till next time.